All right, we are live. Let me just make sure we have this. Cool. What up, guys? What up? All right, man, we are live here doing it. Beautiful day. Emo is right. All right, guys, what's up? This is Nothing Nowhere at Nothing Nowhere. I make music. It's Mental Health Month, and we're here to talk to Mental Health America, do our thing, and let's get them in here. Let's see what's going on. What's up, guys? Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I can't wait to have this chat with you today.
I know. Thanks so much for doing this.
Mhm.
As we were just talking about, it is Mental Health Month, and you work with Mental Health America,
I
which
do.
is awesome. Yeah, we pretty much we wanted to get you on here to just have a little chat and talk about mental health because I feel like we don't get to often, I guess. I mean, like I guess in music with what I do as a musician, it's like we always talk about it, but in other fields, there's a little bit of a stigma. But so let's just start from like the beginning. Like, what did I know MHA was founded in 1909? Like, in your experience, like, what got you into the field?
Sure. So I do have depression and anxiety, so I have some lived experience with mental health conditions myself. And it does run in my family. So there's schizophrenia, there's major depressive disorder, and it was just something I was passionate about because the people around me and what I have experienced drove me into the field to help other people like us. So that's
Yeah.
how I ended up here.
Yeah, killer. And in the same vein, sort of like I grew up, super anxious kid, depression, all that fun stuff, not so fun stuff, and just started making songs about it, you know what I mean? And now
Hmm.
I make sad songs or whatever, and I'm that, so like I'm the go-to mental health like artist that people hit up. Um, but yeah, I mean that was sort of my experience and stuff. Like I don't know like you know, moving forward, it's been like a journey as it is with so many people. I'm sure you've had your own journey and stuff. Like, I know you're very well versed in the topic. Like, what can people do to sort of like if someone doesn't know where to start, like where do you even start? Like, hey, I might be depressed, I might be anxious. Like, where do you start?
Um, do you mean like opening up to people about your mental health conditions?
Yeah, like is like what's the first step? You know what I mean? Like do you seek professional help? Do you start meditating? Do you reach out to people? You know what I mean? Or maybe it's a mixture of all those.
Yeah, well, for a lot of people, it can be intimidating to reach out to the people that they love about their mental health conditions. It's really hard to be vulnerable because they might be people that you love and trust, but sometimes they don't always have like the reactions that you expect when you open up, and that can be really devastating. So what we like to do is we like to have so when people start experience struggling with their mental health, like a lot of people recognize themselves as something's not quite right. Like maybe one day I just listen to like a song and I just start bursting into tears, but it doesn't seem like there's any reason for it. But we at Mental Health America, we have free online screening tools at mhascreening.org. And it's a really good way to check in with your mental health. So they're all professionally validated screens. And they're what you would get if you go to like your primary care provider and they do like the physical checkup. And so the same way that they would like check your skin or they would listen to your heart, they usually ask this question and it's like a screen. And we have them at mhascreening.org, and you can use it to check in on your mental health because our mental health fluctuates every single day. So you can see if you're doing okay, if you're experiencing like severe anxiety, if you're experiencing psychosis is one of them. We even have screens for parents if they notice like their child is experiencing some unusual behavior than what they usually would. So like if they talk to their friends a lot and suddenly they become really isolated, they can start by taking like a screen and seeing if there might be something that they can do. And that's like a really good way to kind of start the conversation with people. You take the screen, you get the results. There's resources that you can use to learn more about your results and about coping with your results based on what you got. So if you got severe anxiety, there's going to be articles about how to cope with panic attacks, how to get out of cognitive distortions, which we call thinking traps. They're
Hmm.
kind of you might have heard of them before, but they're like when you're like, oh, I'm the worst person ever. Like I don't deserve to live. Like what's the point of me being alive if it makes everyone else miserable? It's that kind of stuff. And then with those articles, you don't only have to do things by yourself, though there is like stuff where you can seek help. You can use the results and print them out and start a conversation with someone. So say that you're like a teenager and your parents really don't believe you. They think it's teenage stuff, right? Like you have
Mm.
so many feelings inside your body, and then like everything that's happening is always the worst thing that ever happens to you. And like a lot of young people don't see outside of their bubble or outside of what's happening right now. And a lot of times the only way that they can see and escape is even through something like suicide, which is something that I struggled with in high school before. It could have been something as small as getting rejected from like my dream college, and it would immediately set off like thoughts of suicidal ideation. And I would start making plans. And
Yeah.
that's like not normal. Like that's not a normal reaction that people have to things. And that's when I noticed something was wrong. And so what you want to do is you'll take the results and like let's say you're experiencing severe anxiety or severe depression. You can use them to talk to your parents and be like, look, I took this screen. That's what it says. I think there's something wrong. I really want to talk to someone. I don't know how to get started. And if you don't have somebody like a parent that you can talk to or trust, like try a friend. If you have like a safe adult, like maybe your friend's parents or somebody that you find a safe space, or like your teacher is someone, like your English teacher. I had a drama teacher that was my safe
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And they are equipped with providing you with resources and they're trained to connect you with counselors and whatever they have available at school. So there's just some ways that people can get started with talking about their mental health. It can be really scary, but having something like concrete and evidence based can be a really great way to start, especially for people around them who are skeptics.
Yeah, and I feel like, you're talking about getting like younger kids screened and your screening process. Like, I feel like personally, like in my opinion, like the stigma's gone away, and I think the resources are much more vast than when I was younger. I mean, I'm 28 now. When I was started having panic attacks, I was in second grade, and they went misdiagnosed for I don't know years, 3 years. Just wasn't sure what it was, and I don't think I really had the vocabulary to kind of express what I was going through. Like in your opinion, like do you think are you optimistic about the future of talking about mental health? I know obviously we're talking about it now, but where do you think the stigma's headed?
So, one of the really great things about the younger generation is that they're talking about their mental health super openly. Like, you can just go on TikTok and then you'll see like people talking about like their mental health. The one I saw the other day was someone who was talking about that the only reason why they're still staying is because of their dog. And, even those little reasons like that to stay are so valuable. Like, I have a dog, like, who's going to feed them if I just, if I die? So I think it's really cool that there's like so many younger people talking about it so openly, and you can see the results of like how the stigma is decreasing by seeing like what's going on in Congress. Now, I know that a lot of change doesn't happen very suddenly, and it's really hard to see like what's going on. But if you keep up what's going on in Congress, or you like sign up for emails or whatever and see what's going on, it's really cool. So like for example, when the Affordable Care Act was passed back in 2008, that made it required for insurance companies to cover mental health conditions at parity, which means equally to physical health conditions.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of expansive legislation like that that's happening. And the reason why is because the elected officials are hearing what people are talking about, they're hearing what people are saying, and they're implementing those decisions. And it's really hard to see that, but it is happening. Change is occurring, and it's because people are talking about it. If you don't talk about it, they don't know it's an issue. So keep talking about it, and it can really make some change. One of the biggest changes that happened in the last few years was that mental health education has become mandated in a lot of states. And that
Really?
started, yeah, and that started with New York State. So New York State started the mandate. It was pushed by one of our affiliates in New York. And now a lot of other states are following suit to require mental health education in schools, just like physical health education. Um, so I'm really optimistic with the way things are going. It can seem like everything's getting worse because so many people are talking about it. But
Mm.
if you think about, there's like a graph that gets passed around a lot. And it's like the number of people who admit to having like left-handedness. And it's like once it became okay to be left-handed, a lot of people said they were left-handed. So the graph like increased exponentially, but they were always there. Like these mental health conditions have always been there. They've been there since 1909 when we were founded, but more people are talking about it. So it looks like it's getting worse and worse, which in some ways it is, especially for young people. And like there aren't supports there for them right now. But with people talking about it, things are getting better. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
leave people on like a hopeful note for that.
Yeah, it's like I remember even just growing up, like it wasn't something that was openly talked about whatsoever. It was really hush hush, you know what I mean? And that was a good distinction that you made that like it can feel like more and more people are depressed or anxious, but when in fact they're probably just more vocal about it, which is great, which should be encouraged. I mean, obviously we're on Hot Topics Instagram. I'm a musician and I was lucky enough to have that scene of like, you know, going to shows and listening to bands that were saying, you know, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to feel like you don't belong. It's okay to feel depressed, anxious, you know, like in promoting that positive mental attitude was huge. So I hope that in the future, like my experience and my little scene in music can be brought to other areas. And I think we're headed there for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I remember when I was in middle school and high school, I used to listen to bands like All Time Low, My Chemical Romance, um, Desperate Confessional, like all these
Yeah.
pop punk bands. And the reason why I listened to them was because like the things in the lyrics and the things that they said really resonated with people. And like when you create music about your experiences and about all the negative things, it can help people like kind of express those feelings that they have bottled up. And it's really cathartic. It might feel really bad to just like listen to a song and start crying, but you know, it's
Mm.
actually really healing to let yourself feel those emotions and accept them. That's actually
Yeah.
one of our tools to thrive for like our mental health month campaign is radical acceptance.
Yeah,
And one of
talk
those,
about that a
yeah,
little bit. I mean, like, so Mental Health Month, Mental Health America, you guys have a Tools to Thrive toolkit. Can you explain to people what that is?
yeah, sure. So if anybody didn't know, Mental Health America actually founded Mental Health Awareness Month back in 1949 with the JCs. And it started out as Mental Health Week, and it was a way for people to get educated about what mental illness is and what mental health is. And those two are two different things. So when you think of like illness versus health. And this year's theme is Tools Thrives. And basically, we're sharing practical tools and things that like are shared in like cognitive behavioral therapy that everybody can use in order to maintain their mental wellness. So one of the ones I just referred to is like radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is kind of just like a lot of things happen and a lot of bad things happen, but being able to accept your negative feelings as well as your positive ones is
Mm,
actually pretty healthy because our negative ones um, they're there for a reason, if that makes sense. We developed them so that we could survive. So if you think about anxiety, for example, our bodies react to like a load of laundry that we've had sitting on the bed for weeks, the same way we would react to like a predator. It's like it makes your heart palpitate or palpitate. Sorry,
yeah,
but
that's
it
the
like
word.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It like makes your heart beat. It makes you nervous. It makes like the hair stand on the back of your neck. Like,
Mm,
and then if you have depression, it makes you feel worthless. So what's the point of even
hmm.
doing that? And then your anxiety is like, well, you need to do it. So it's like we develop these things in order to keep us safe, but for some reason it kind of like gets out of hand for a lot of people. So
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's like super important. I know like for me, you know, with anxiety and stuff, learning about like the physiology of it and like what's like actually happening internally, why like your neurons are firing, like and really understanding it for me is has really helped me. Because when I start to feel like I'm about to have a panic attack, like I think I have more of a foundation of knowledge that's like, okay, my heart rate's going up because my neurons are firing, my neurons are talking to each other, and I have in what Buddhism they call monkey mind, just talking, talking, talking. So that's really cool that you guys do that, and I might have to hit the Tools to Thrive toolkit as well because, you know, I'm, I'm a person just like anyone else, and I struggle with mental health. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about is like, I don't think a lot of people talk about this. Like, I have my own little routines that I do daily. I try to get up, I try to meditate, stay active, reach out to a friend, like, but oftentimes I feel myself slipping away from that and kind of falling out of the routine. Is this something in your practice that you've noticed a lot? And like, how can someone like get back on it and not like want to quit? And how do they forgive themselves for that? You know what I mean?
So one of the things that we talk about a lot is thinking of recovery as more of a journey than as a goal. And that might not make sense because our mission statement says that we want to provide mental health for everybody with recovery as the goal. But recovery is kind of like an influx thing. So if you think about like anyways, it's normal to relapse, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. It's normal to experience a depressive episode again. A lot of these things are chronic, and you're going to have to, a lot of times, cope with them over and over again. So let's say that you had been going to therapy for a few months, things are looking up, like you stopped going because you didn't think it was necessary, or you talked to your therapist and said, like, hey, I'm doing okay. I don't think we need to keep doing this. And that's totally fine. And then sometimes you'll start to slip back into those things. And a lot of people will notice like the warning signs, if that makes sense. Like
Mm,
a lot of people are more aware of their mental health struggles than we give them credit for.
yeah.
We're usually the experts of our own mental health conditions. So if I know that I've stopped going outside, I've stopped wanting to go out and walk the dog, I've stopped wanting to go out and maybe see my family, like I know that there's like something going on, and I think it's time to start calling my therapist again.
Mm,
So how do I'm trying to like find a really good analogy that hopefully explains it. If you think about mental health treatment just the same way that you think about like physical health treatments, so sometimes people need crutches and they only need it temporarily and then they'll be fine again. And then maybe they injure themselves and then they need the crutches again. That's totally fine. And that's totally to be expected. We can't always keep ourselves healthy for like our entire lives after getting sick once or getting injured
yeah,
once.
that's a
Some
great point.
people, yeah, some people have a physical disability that requires them to use like a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. And that's okay. Like maybe they need that. Maybe like somebody needs to take medication to manage their symptoms for the rest of their lives. That's totally okay. It's what works for them. And it's totally to be expected if you end up going back into like depressive episodes, if you start experiencing panic attacks again, if something triggers your disordered eating again. It's okay to ask for help. You're not a failure just because you're going back into this place again.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. You're not a failure. I mean, with that, those sort of like cognitive distortions, like in staying on a routine, like it's like if you fall off of one, you'll be like, I'm never gonna get better or whatever. But it's important to understand that like the external voice that's talking to you, it doesn't always have your best interest, and deep down to follow your intuition, and like for me, if for example, if I'm like, oh, it's 7 p.m. I haven't eaten anything today. I'm like, maybe I should reach out to my therapist or something because it's probably not good. And I understand you guys have like you kind of like categorize things by stages and you have the before stage four thing. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have something called the before stage four philosophy. And while this isn't like technically part of like behavioral health treatment, it's like a really good way for people to understand and visualize early intervention and identification when it comes to mental health. Because if you notice with mental health and mental illness, the only time people enter the behavioral healthcare system is after they've experienced crisis. So I don't know if this happened with you, but the only time I ever went into mental health care was after I attempted suicide, which was like, I was already at stage 4 at that point, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you don't start treating someone with diabetes after they have already developed, like, they have to amputate their leg or something like that, right? Like, it's already
Yeah.
too late. So
Yeah.
what we do is we really push early intervention and identification, which is why we push for like mental health in schools and for like younger and younger people. So basically, if you think about healthcare in stages, it's like there's definitely like some early warning signs is like stage 1. Like maybe somebody stopped eating regularly, maybe they stopped going out as much, maybe they are seeming like more listless. There's like stage 2, which is like more severe symptoms, like maybe they're experiencing panic attacks. Maybe they don't feel anything, like for depression, sometimes you're just like totally numb. Stage 3 is when you start seeing when your symptoms start hampering your everyday life, if that makes sense.
Mm.
You stop going to school, you stop eating regularly, a lot of those kind of things. And then stage 4 is the crisis stage. Stage 4 can be suicidal ideation. It can be developing a suicide plan. It can be full on a psychotic episode where they're experiencing like delusions or paranoia. And then yeah, so that's like obviously like that's critical care, and somebody would need to go to the emergency room like once they're already at stage 4. But we don't want to treat behavioral health care like that. Like we want it to be normalized that people are getting screened at their primary care provider from when they're very young. Because I'm not sure if you have also experienced this, but a lot of people, when they talk about like their mental health conditions, they'll say like, I knew something was wrong when I was 10.
Yeah. Same.
Or my,
Yep.
yeah, or like my eating disorder started when I was 8. Like
Yeah.
I was already aware of these things when I was quite young. And
Yeah.
since we know that, we don't know why it takes like 10 years for people to get like the correct diagnosis and treatment that they need. But yeah, that's kind of like the whole before stage 4 philosophy and how we operate and how we push our mission.
That's so cool to put it in like in concrete terms, because yeah, like I remember being in second grade and having panic attacks in the cafeteria and being like, the school nurse like, oh, maybe you just have a stomach ache, you're sick. And that's another thing, like moving forward, like super optimistic about it. And I don't this is so rad what you guys are doing, and just it makes me really happy, and it makes me think about that kid in second grade now, like things can only get better. And they won't have to kind of go through like, late 90s, early 2000s, what I, or maybe you went through, where it wasn't as, you know, prevalent, where we weren't having these discussions, where we didn't have a whole month that was dedicated to it. You know what I mean? I mean, I've made a career of, of like crying on songs about how sad I am. But, it's like, it's catharsis. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to let it out and you got to be real. And I think my advice to anyone who's like watching this or whatever is like, you and I, we took similar yet different paths. We're still involved in mental health, sort of awareness. And like, I just think it's great to just be real with your loved ones and be real with everyone. Like, I don't have a problem saying, hey, I'm on medication. Hey, I have panic attacks. Like, it's, you're a human. Things happen. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I think the fact that you talk about like your feelings and that you cry on screen or like you cry like while you're doing your music is actually like really good. It's really amazing for people to see those portrayals because they don't feel so alone. One of my favorite pieces of media that has come out recently that has depicted mental health struggles is actually BoJack Horseman on
Yeah.
Netflix. I don't know if a lot of people have watched it, but it for a lot of people they listen to like the way that the characters interact with each other and struggle with their own like I don't want to say their own like shortcomings that they see for themselves.
Hmm.
And it resonated with a lot of people. And being able to see other people struggle like that or other people cope with those things is really critical. It makes them feel not alone. I know it's kind of stereotypical to hear like you're not alone, but you really aren't. And that there are people out there who care and understand for you. And one of
Mm,
the really great things about social media is that a lot of those people are being able to connect with each other on those experiences. So you yourself have created a community where people can connect with you and they have like a relationship with you and they can express themselves with your music. So I think that's really awesome.
yeah, it is like, yeah, knowing you're not alone. I know it sounds like you said cliche, but it's like there's I think it was probably Schopenhauer, but like old philosopher, like kind of viewed other humans as like he called them my fellow sufferers. And with Buddhism and whatever, it's like, suffering is inevitable. And there's a weird beauty in that, you know what I mean? It's like knowing that you're at the grocery store, you have no idea like what someone else is going through, and it makes it easier to be more compassionate and gentle towards people you don't even know because they could be in their own literal hell. So I think that's a really important thing. um, I was thinking we answer a few questions from the chat.
Uh,
If you're comfortable with that, I might go and see what we got. I know people have been hollering. um, I know one person asked earlier if you guys want to throw some questions in, rip them. But one person was kind of talking about the chemical imbalance, and they said something like, "Is it real or not?" You know what I mean? This is we're at a point now with science where we kind of understand that it is real. What's sort of your knowledge on that? I know it's like some people are low on serotonin, some people are low on dopamine. You know.
So with the chemical imbalance thing, I can't speak to all of the science or the research behind that. I'm part of the communications team. We have a
Hmm.
program. Oops, sorry. We have like a programs team that could probably speak better to that. But to be honest, we don't know exactly what causes a lot of like people's mental illnesses or their struggles. It's usually a combination of factors. We do know that a lot of mental health conditions run in families. So if you have a mother or grandmother or an uncle that experienced bipolar disorder, it's more likely to show up in you.
Mm.
We know, so it's genetic. We know that there are some biological factors in there. We know that a lot of times it can be triggered by environmental factors. So if you grow up in like an unsafe environment in an abusive home, um, even like normal traumatic things I mean, I don't want to say like normal traumatic things, but like
Yeah.
trauma that a lot of people experience. So like bullying and harassment in school is like a really common trigger for a lot of mental health conditions.
Mm.
But it it really is a variety of factors. We can prevent them as much as we can by building resiliency, by educating people, by screening people when they're young. But we can't exactly pinpoint like the exact cause of these things the same way that we can do it for physical health conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. That's a great point. And there's another question here that I think is I can answer anecdotally, and then you with probably a wider breadth of knowledge could also answer. And someone was kind of saying, do you think you can heal? I think the word they use is soulfully on your own, or is medicine always needed? I feel like a lot of depression medication is short-term, temporary solution. So anecdotally for me, right? I was having panic attacks my whole life, having a great time with those, really struggling, and I got to sort of stage four. I got to the very last stage where I was like, all right, I'll try antidepressants, I will try medication, and ever since starting that, being so afraid to, being ashamed to, being whatever, I'm feeling better than I ever have, and so I think it's a case by case basis, as you might find as well. But for me, I was that person who never ever wanted to touch anything, and was essentially almost forced to, and now I'm doing much better.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really important for people to hear your own personal experience, but definitely what you said, it's a case by case basis, just like any other kind of medication. And for everybody's information, there's a lot of different kinds of medications with different kinds of formulas. So like one antidepressant might not work for you. So like if Zoloft doesn't work, like maybe you try Prozac. Maybe the dose, like maybe you need a lesser dose or more like intense dose. So
Yeah.
it's really important for you to work together with like your psychiatrist to figure out like what's working and what's not, to report side effects that you're experiencing. Like if you're experiencing a lot of nausea, like make sure to tell them that, so that
Yeah.
they can work out a way for you to like get weaned off and onto another one. But yeah, what you said, it's really on a case by case basis. I'm going to use like my analogy again, about like the crutches and the wheelchair. It's like some people will need crutches and they'll need them temporarily. And like once they're all better, they can go off of antidepressants or they can go off of their antipsychotics after they've reached like a stable period. And then sometimes people need it for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Sometimes people living with bipolar disorder will need to take like medication for the rest of their lives. Some people living with bipolar disorder don't. It really depends on what works for you. Like I don't take any medication right now because I'm doing okay, but I have
Mm.
taken medication in the past because I wasn't doing okay. And
Right.
it was okay for me to do that and to make that choice. And at Mental Health America, that's like what we're really about. We're really about choice. So if you don't want to take medication at all, like that's your prerogative. Like you can go to therapy, you can go to healing circles, you can get a peer support specialist instead of a therapist. There's so many other ways that you can treat your mental health condition that works for you.
Right. It's kind of like that old adage, like, casting a wider net into the ocean to catch more things. Like, it is really, like you were saying earlier, it's a journey. It's, for me, it's, not only is it just the medication, which I was so reluctant to start, but it's, being physical, meditating, all this, which goes great. And I'll take one more question here. It goes great into this, and it's, you know, very relevant to myself. But this question is sort of generally, what are some ways to cope with anxiety? Because I know everyone deals with it, or most people do.
Oh, ways to cope with anxiety. You
Hmm.
know, I'm still dealing with it myself. Sometimes I just have to go into my car and drive into a quiet place and listen to like Helena by My Chemical Romance on repeat and just cry it out.
Yes,
Um,
get the record.
but like, it doesn't, that's not for everybody. And, that's, but there are a lot of like actual ways that are evidence-based that can really help people. So one of my favorite techniques to deal with anxiety is called a grounding technique. And some people may have heard of it before, and some people may have gone through treatment and learned how to use it before. But my favorite grounding technique is called like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have you heard of it before?
Is it a no? I don't think so.
Yeah, and it's really good to have in your back pocket to use, not only for yourself, but for people around you. Because one of my family members was in the middle of a psychotic episode, and using the grounding technique helped bring them back from their
Mm,
delusion, which was really great. But basically, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique uses your senses to kind of like bring you back to where you are right now, bring you back to the present.
mm.
Because when you have anxiety, you tend to spiral. You just think of like the worst case scenario of like what's going to happen.
What
And
if?
yeah, what if? So this brings you back to the moment. So basically, I don't remember all the exact senses, but it's basically like um, point out 5 things that you can see. Touch 4 things that are right next to you right now. So like if I said like my t-shirt is soft, my desk is hard, whatever it is. The third thing could be like what are 3 smells or something like that.
Hmm.
Or like what's um I'm already like forgetting, or what's like 2 things that you can hear right now.
Hmm.
And then like the last one could be like what's something that you can taste right now. Um,
Right.
it sounds silly because like sometimes you haven't eaten anything or you can't taste anything, but it's like, oh, I taste the inside of my mouth right now. And like that's something. Or I
Yeah.
smell laundry that needs to be folded.
Yeah.
But that's like a really great way to bring people back to the present, especially if you start spiraling.
Yeah. And this has been sort of the remedy for thousands of years, dating back to Taoism and Buddhism and sort of Vipassana meditation. And in my experience, is like the present moment is all that we really have. The future is doesn't exist. It's not real. You're projecting these things that you think will happen that probably won't even happen. And the past is the past. So the present moment is so fertile and so important, to just be there. And I think those like the grounding techniques are so important. And then also for me too, like just different breathing techniques. Like people have their different numbers, but I do like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds hold, 5 seconds exhale. It really like calms down your nervous system and just levels it out. Like I think that's the main thing for me as well with anxiety, is to just stay in the moment. Try and get back. You're sitting here, what's going on around you, you know?
Yeah. We we call a lot of those like thinking spirals, like thinking traps or like cognitive distortions. And it's the way that our brain tries to keep us safe. But our brain doesn't know the difference between like your messy room or like your homework versus like you're out in the forest and you're in
Hmm.
danger of like a predator.
Hmm.
So I I can sit there and I can be grateful for like the way that my body is trying to protect me, but there are also ways like that we can, protect ourselves from our bodies, just like allergies, if that makes sense. Like our allergies develop because we're trying to keep ourselves safe from like dangerous foods or something, but they become too overreactive. They're just trying to keep us
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. It's overwhelming, but I mean, we have the tools, we have our network to reach out to. You guys have the Tools to Thrive kit. We won't use too much of your time. Is there a place that people can go to check out the Tools to Thrive toolkit and check out the screening program for Mental Health America?
Yeah, yeah. So if you go to mhanational.org/May, you can find all of our tools to thrive that are available for Mental Health Month. They'll still be there even after Mental Health Month is over. We have them available in English and Spanish, so I really recommend that you guys check it out. And then for the screening tools, you can go to mhascreening.org. It's free, it's secure, it's confidential. We don't ask for like your contact information. We ask some demographic information just for research purposes, but that's totally optional. But you will get any kind of like results. A lot of the articles there are written for people who have never been in the behavioral healthcare system before. So it's really easy to understand, and it's written in a way that like a lot of people would talk about their mental health problems.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Like, I feel lighter. I hope people learned a thing or two, and I'm inspired to go practice some grounding right now.
Awesome. Maybe do some meditation. It'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be rad. Well, have an amazing day, and thank you so much for sharing everything with us.
And thank you so much for having me and for sharing your story. That was really awesome.
All right, killer. Well,
All right.
take it easy. Bye,
Bye bye.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace.